Brittany, the rugged west of France, with picturesque old towns, castles and fortresses, and the surf of the Atlantic that constantly laps against its rocky coastline. The ancient name of Armorica, meaning the land of the sea. It underlines the historical significance of the ocean for those who live in this part of the world. Rennes is the capital of the region. It is here that our journey through Brittany begins. A small town in which both medieval and classical buildings stand side by side. A number of historic houses located in the small lanes between the Saint-Pierre Cathedral and the Place Sainte-Anne have survived to the present day. In 1720, a disastrous fire that raged for 7 days destroyed 945 houses here. However, they were subsequently rebuilt, even more beautiful and more impressive than before. Today, this is a lively town with cosmopolitan flair. These old houses were not built from stone because when they were erected, stone had to be transported from far away and was thus used only for the city's walls and bastions. It was more practical to use the huge trees from the surrounding forests. Magnificent wooden casings were then reinforced with loam. Several crooked, partly renovated framework houses are situated side by side in the alleys of the old town. Their carved windows and oriels create a medieval atmosphere. Once the Celts settled here, then the Romans, and finally the Dukes of Brittany ruled from Rennes. "32 kilometers south is Vitré, a picture postcard town with a city wall, narrow lanes and a castle. This splendid chateau was built in the 11th century. During the 100 Years' War in the 14th and 15th centuries, it was completely renovated. English troops besieged Vitré for many years until the lords of the castle finally paid a high ransom for their freedom. The besieging army thus withdrew. The well-fortified town subsequently enjoyed much prosperity and has remained intact right up until the present day. A fine example of medieval architecture. During the Holy Wars, Vitré was a Protestant stronghold and was frequently threatened by the Catholic League, but it was never captured. Today, the local inhabitants quarrel only with their counterparts in Dinan, a competition for the title of the region's best maintained fortified medieval town. With its 13 towers, the fortified Fougères Castle is a unique building. Unlike the town, it is not located on a hill, but in a deep valley. The Église Saint-Sulpice, with its slender tower, was built between the 15th and 18th centuries in late Gothic design. Back to the chateau. The fortified wall and its 13 towers enclose a large area, a powerful example of medieval architecture. But this imposing complex withstood only a handful of sieges and was taken several times by various foes. The large inner courtyard is surrounded by mighty corner towers and thick strategic walls that were also used for cannon fire. The old town of today developed on the hill above the castle. It's been very well preserved, an architectural gem. The town has the same history as its fortress, and poets such as Victor Hugo and Gustave Flaubert were inspired by its evocative atmosphere. Le Mont Saint-Michel, with its historic buildings, the 80-meter-high granite mound is like something from a fairy tale. Powerful fortifications surround the small town and the abbey at the top of the rock. Due to its unique location and architectural splendor, this picturesque village is often referred to as the Wonder of the Occident. According to legend, the Archangel Michael appeared in Bishop Aubert d'Avranches' dreams and ordered the construction of a pilgrim's church in 708 AD. In the middle of the 10th century, Benedictine monks from Saint-Vandrille took over this mountain pilgrimage. Meanwhile, the great Romanic abbey church of Mont Saint-Michel remained almost unchanged. However, its construction turned out to be an immense architectural and technical challenge. The walls of the buildings collapsed several times during their construction. Finally, the Romanic church was completed in the middle of the 12th century. Thus, monastic life flourished. Mont Saint-Michel soon developed into an important pilgrimage destination that also became important for the village situated below the abbey. Thus, a unique monument to the history of French architecture developed that united various talented artists and architects of different epochs. However, in 1791, monastic life here found a sudden and violent end when revolutionary French troops drove the Benedictine monks from this area. But the myth of the Wonder of the Occident lives on. Saint-Sampson Cathedral is the main landmark of Dol-de-Bretagne, the seat of a highly influential archbishop. the largest and most beautiful Norman Gothic cathedral in Brittany, built in the 12th and 13th centuries, and completed in the 16th. In 848 AD, Duke Nomino was ceremoniously crowned here as the first Duke of Brittany. Dedicated to Holy Samson, the cathedral is a monumental site, more like a fortress than a house of God. The Château La Bourbonsais is one of the many castles that are still maintained by the descendants of the region's nobility. The current descendants of the Bourbonsais are directly related to Jean de Brielle from 1583 to the 19th century of today. The castle and its estate are now financed by paying visitors. A traditional pack of dogs is on display. The Spectacle de Meute features the art of hunting with a well-trained pack of dogs, as once employed by the French monarchy. A zoo highlights the interest of the castle's original occupants for a collection of exotic animals from all over the world. This well-laid-out parkland with its trees and flower beds is the perfect setting for a large range of wildlife. The king of animals, along with his family, as well as leopards, oxen and llamas. Both indigenous and exotic animals, from each continent, plus many protected species. Cancale is well known, Brittany's centre of oyster farming. This delicacy is farmed in the sheltered bays of this area. At low tide, the muddy oyster beds appear and work can begin. Around 2,000 tons of oysters are harvested here each year. The oysters are offered for sale at the harbour, fresh and at their very best. These oysters once lived wild on the seabed, but today they are farmed exclusively in Brittany and Normandy. The village is a friendly place. In former times, its fishermen once fished for cod and then returned to the bay to collect oysters. A stone monument commemorates the endeavours of the hard-working women of Cancale, the cleaning of the oysters in special baskets. Further west is the Côte d'Emeraude, 120 kilometres of what is also known as the Emerald Coast, and also a view of the English Channel. This region has been a popular tourist destination for many years. Auguste Renoir and Paul Signac once came here to paint. They were inspired by the raw beauty of the landscape. The remote rocky bays and blue sea with its white sailing boats confirms the name of this beautiful coastline. Real gems set within a natural landscape. The steep rock walls, bright sandy beaches and fascinating rock formations are typical of this region, along with the sea that reflects the blue of the sky. For holidays, this romantic section of the coast was first discovered by the British, and many of the region's resorts are similar to those in England. The Emerald Coast is a world of foaming white surf and cliffs. Wild and wonderful. A captivating sight. Saint-Malo is the proud and solemn town of the Corsairs. Today's yacht harbour once contained pirate ships that were used to attack unsuspecting merchant ships laden with rich cargo. This old pirate citadel, located on the Emerald Coast, is built from granite and looks as though it's an integral part of the rock. Beyond the huge fortified walls is a castle, a cathedral, and numerous houses, closely packed together. The historic centre of the town stretches across the entire island that was only connected with the mainland by way of a dam in the 18th century. Much of the town was destroyed in the Second World War, but was subsequently rebuilt according to the architecture of the 18th century. But there's not much of it to see. Jacques Cartier set sail from Saint-Malo and in 1534 discovered Canada that was named after an Indian word for village. Another famous son of the city was Robert Surcouf. He was commanded by the king to live like a pirate and capture enemy ships. From Saint-Malo, a boat travels up the romantic river Rance. A journey with many interesting sights. It's farewell to this proud and historic town. A town that has always been impregnable from the sea. The boat travels past some of Dinan's houses. On the opposite side of the fjord-like bay, the wide mouth of the river Rance. Soon, a number of locks have to be negotiated, as in 1966 a power station that makes use of the tides was built here. The difference between the sea level is 13 meters. The powerful tides turn 24 turbines and generators in the direction of both high and low tides. Several large bridges span the wide mouth of the river, including the Lessin Viaduct that was constructed by Eiffel in 1879. Here, the river becomes obvious. In former times, the boats were pulled upstream by both man and horsepower. Finally, we arrive at our destination, a medieval river harbour that ends in front of an old stone bridge. Dinan. This small, enchanting French town on the banks of the Rance is one of the most beautiful and well-preserved medieval towns in Brittany. Today, cobbled lanes and several half-timbered buildings highlight the town's colourful history. The town's defences were constructed in the 14th century. A circular wall 2.5 kilometres long protected the inhabitants of Dinan from hostile attack. Indeed, whenever hostilities threatened Brittany, the town's population succeeded in protecting their much-loved town. The Basilica Saint-Sauveur is the town's main architectural treasure. This Romanic church boasts a variety of building styles. However, despite its battles and sieges, the picturesque old town has survived to the present day and has become one of the most popular tourist destinations in Brittany. Since 1983, the perfectly restored walls of this splendid old town have provided the setting for one of the most famous medieval festivals in France. The 14th century Dinan Castle has been the subject of much restoration work. It is located along the periphery of the town and once formed part of its defences. It's like being on a journey through the Middle Ages. Returning once again to the North Atlantic coast is the holiday resort of Perros-Guirec with its fine yacht harbour and good bathing beaches. It was originally named Pain Rose by the Bretons, and the region's first hotel was built here at the end of the 19th century. Two idyllic beaches lie sheltered beyond a peninsula that extends far out to sea. Today, more than 40,000 visitors are attracted here each year by the luxury hotels and fine harbours of this romantically remote region. The local people have managed to retain the nostalgic splendour of the Belle Époque and to adapt it to contemporary times, with casinos and thalassotherapy. The rose-coloured stone of the coastline inspired its name. The Côte de Granite Rose, it's 20 kilometres long. Typical of this region are its strange rock formations, whose extraordinary shapes have always fired the imagination. Nature, acting as a sculptress, has created fantastic-looking stone figures between and beyond numerous sandy beaches. Bizarre granite formations. This large variety of images has been caused by cracks in the granite that have been eroded by the sea. And their rose-coloured hue originates from a special kind of feldspar. The house in the chasm is squeezed between two huge rocks, an extraordinary building that also makes a good photo. Along the cliffs is an old frontier path, the Sentier des Douaniers, today a much-used footpath. Lighthouses warn passing ships of the dangers of the rocky coast that is magnificent when the weather is fine, but extremely treacherous when it turns. When these natural formations shine out in the light of the afternoon sun, they're a truly impressive sight. Morlaix is around 5 kilometres from the coast and is situated within a deep gorge. In former times, ships once sailed right up to the town. But in 1897, the harbour basin was filled in and a 58-metre-high railway viaduct now spans the narrow valley. Originally, Morlaix was a trading town. It was once the largest harbour on the English Channel. Both traders and the nobility once settled here. It soon began to prosper. From the beginning, ship owners, pirates and traders took advantage of the favourable geographical location of the town. It was a lively place. The medieval character of the old town has been well preserved and the romantic houses have been renovated with no expense spared. The charm of its location within a deep valley whose walls contain the entire town has made Morlaix a truly captivating location. Now, we're in the extreme west, in Finistère, the land of the Calvary Mountains and the fenced-in parsonages of Les Enclos. The features are always the same. A cemetery surrounded by a high stone wall, a triumphal gate, and a charnel house with calvaire and a church. The calvaire are groups of figures that depict Golgotha, a sacred history carved in stone. Fascinating monuments that date back to the 16th and 17th centuries. Elements of both Celtic and Christian culture that depict both real life and fantastical scenes. Thanks to the former wealth of the local parishes, many of the region's villages possess magnificent churches. The interior of the churches features a combination of both late Gothic and Breton Renaissance design. Everything has been created from stone and has been adorned with scenes inspired by the crucifixion. The fenced-in parsonages are one of the most impressive examples of religious art in this remote region of Brittany. A unique example of devout faith. Further west, and the Atlantic appears yet again. In Brest, there is nothing of the wild, romantic beauty of Finistère. The historic Old Town no longer exists. Its role as the most important military harbour and submarine base in France spelled disaster for the town in the Second World War. Between 1940 and 1944, Brest was constantly bombed and more than half of it was destroyed. Its rebuilding program introduced a number of new attractions such as the Oceanopolis, a supermodern sea park that features a large number of animals and plants. This oceanic theme park is located in 3 pavilions that house huge saltwater pools and contain various creatures that live in the temperate zones of both the polar regions and the tropics. Multimedia performances help visitors to discover the beauty and boundless riches of the oceans, and also the dangers. Each of the animals and their artificial living areas require constant attention. It's a truly adventurous project that is unique in Europe. The journey continues southeast, through the endless forests of Finistère, the land at the end of the world, past rivers and tiny villages. Even today, the people of this region are highly religious and they take great pride in the upkeep of their graveyards. Remote villages lie amid lush green meadows and colourful hedge-lined landscapes, in stark contrast to the rugged landscape of the coast. This area has a special charm. The massive tower of the Saint-Ronan church rises above the village of Locronan and its 800 inhabitants in the French region of Brittany. The church is one of the most beautiful examples of late Gothic architecture and was built between 1420 and 1480. Built in the 16th century, the Chapelle du Penetti contains the grave of Holy Ronan and one of the most beautiful prone figures in France. Three rows of colourful church windows depict various scenes of Christ's suffering and resurrection. Both the village and the church derive their name from this sacred personage. In the 15th century, the sleepy village developed into a prosperous sail-making centre, until the arrival of successful competition and lower prices. The village owes its popularity to the old architecture and dark grey granite buildings that lie within the historic heart of Locronan. Due to a sudden lack of money, the town's inhabitants were unable to improve the design of their houses or to build new ones. That's why it's like being in another time, full of history and nostalgia. The Cap de la Chèvre is the southernmost extremity of a peninsula of the Parc Naturel Régional d'Amérique. Here, old Breton stone houses and picturesque villages make it easy to forget normal everyday life. The local people are proud of their natural surroundings. A remote heath landscape leads to a wild and romantic coastline and a wonderful view of the sea. The bays and rocks are spectacular, isolated and thought-provoking. Rugged charm that touches the soul. "70-metre-high cliffs reach towards the sea and the strong waves of the Atlantic. Douarnenez is a lively harbour town situated in the bay of the same name. It's one of the most important fishing harbours in Brittany and the centre of France's fish preserving industry. There is no historically important architecture to be found here, just the flair of a busy harbour town. More than 20,000 tons of fish, crustaceans and scallops are fished and processed in the town's 3 harbours each year. Douarnenez also boasts an extraordinary museum, a maritime museum located in the old harbour of Port-Roux. It features the history of Brittany's shipbuilding and navigation. Here, there are more than 200 different types of ship from each corner of the world. Along the quay are the workshops of various important shipbuilders. The Phoenicians and the Romans knew how to exploit the town's unique location. The French King Louis XIII and Cardinal Richelieu were responsible for the creation of this fortress in what was once a fishing village, Port-Louis. The present-day harbour makes it difficult to believe that this was once a busy centre of trade with the distant Orient. Influential and wealthy ship owners settled here. They ran the East India Trading Company that earned high taxes for the French monarchy. The king had a citadel built at the entrance to the harbour as a defence against would-be attackers. Thus the harbour was named Port-Louis in his honour. The collecting of seafood at low tide is an ideal supplement for the fishermen, as the areas near the coast have been severely overfished. The Megaliths of Carnac still fascinate today. Stone relics that are thousands of years old and date back to the middle of the Neolithic period. Although they've been analysed by scientists, they're nonetheless full of mystique. Though in stark contrast to the lush green fields, the granite rocks blend in well with their surroundings. Some further rocks are thought to have been graves. It is thought that they stood guard over the dead. When Christianity was introduced to this region, heathen rituals gradually disappeared. The long-dead leaders of prehistoric times had already been forgotten. The stones will probably never reveal all their secrets. However, many historians and archaeologists believe that they were linked to some kind of religious belief. For several centuries, the tranquil and mysterious atmosphere of this place has fascinated all those who've experienced it. Masterpieces of prehistoric architecture, grand monuments that have survived time itself. The enchanting medieval city of Auray is situated on a bend of the Rivière d'Auray that flows into the Gulf du Morbihan. The city has earned its place in the history books of Brittany. Here, two families once fought to rule this land, and a battle decided which one. Steep cobblestone lanes lead up a hill. upon which the church of Saint-Gildas lies at the centre of the upper town. Today, it's a popular tourist destination. The Golfe du Morbihan is situated on the south coast of Brittany and protects this region from the strong currents of the Atlantic Ocean. The Golfe du Morbihan consists of two areas: an eastern section that is calm, almost like a lagoon, and a western part with a rocky coastline and strong currents. The attractive charm of the Brittany landscape owes much of its allure to its picturesque old stone houses and idyllic bays with their colourful sailing boats. This huge bay originated 9,000 years ago when the sea level was raised by about 100 metres due to a warming of the earth. The newly elevated sea gradually created hundreds of islands. According to legend, there were once 365 of them, one for each day of the year. Here, the various tides contain powerful currents that constantly create huge movements of water in the Atlantic. This area is therefore ideal for maritime plant and sea life, and the fauna and flora provide a good source of food for the region's bird life. The remoteness of this colourful landscape, along with its dramatic atmosphere, created a paradise on this section of wild Atlantic coastline. At the edge of the Rance Peninsula, close to the shoreline, is the Château de Cessigno. It was originally a hunting lodge, then a fortress. Vannes, capital of the Département Morbihan on the French Atlantic coast, and a place known for its splendid parks. But its mighty walls contain an architectural gem. And even from the outside, this charming small town is a wonderful sight. The name Vannes probably dates back to the time of the ancient Venetians who once settled in the region. Vieux-Lavoie are situated on the riverbank. They're a remnant of a long-forgotten time. The magnificent half-timbered buildings of the historic part of the town are more recent. However, in 1532, Vannes once again became the focus of attention. For it was here that the Dukedom of Brittany was officially united with France. Half-timbered houses that date back to the 15th and 17th centuries form the medieval centre of Vannes. Several charming facades lie closely packed together. A fascinating historic setting. Religion, too, is also a focal point. The Cathédrale Saint-Pierre towers above the historic rooftops of this fine old town. For many centuries, this medieval town has been at the political heart of Brittany. However, today the town's former parliamentarians have been replaced by tourists. The western part of France has many faces. The Romans once called it the end of the world, a land of myths, castles, fishing villages, and picturesque old towns. Brittany, a wild and natural paradise.